Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 229 of the Laravel News Podcast. It is January 7th of 2025. We made it. Made it through 2024, 2025, a brand new year. Let me be the first to wish you all a very happy new year. Hope you all enjoyed the holiday season. Mr. Dorinda, good to see you again, my friend. It has been a bit. We have taken a quick hiatus. Yeah, things are going good. I took a long vacation over the holidays, which was great. So I was gone for Christmas and New Year.
Very nice.
And it was wonderful. So I'm back at it.
Got away? Physically went somewhere?
Yep. Went to Ohio to see my family. And then we drove down to Florida, 13 hours for like a week, and then drove 13 hours back. And so
nice.
It wasn't too bad, though. I didn't think, I was like, oh man, 13 hours, this can be pretty terrible. But it wasn't bad. It went pretty quick. So
you did that. I did that one go? Like in one day? You didn't split it?
Yes. Yep. One shot.
Nice.
Yeah, it was the second time we did it, we left at like 5:30 a.m. And that helped a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Because it kind of made
especially if you missed that early morning traffic as well.
Exactly right. And the kids slept for like 3 hours. So then it felt much shorter.
Quiet.
Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. How'd you do? Did you guys do anything fun?
No, we just had 2 weeks at home this year. Kids were, it was a bit annoying because we thought we were going to have the kids in vacation care so that Rhea and I could have like a couple of weeks off, just like get the kids out of the house for a few hours during the day, and then we could go and do stuff by ourselves. But it turned out that Eli's vacation program was also shut over those 2 weeks, and we didn't feel like we could send Liv to free while Eli was at home, and she's old enough now that she starts asking these questions. So
right.
So we just had the kids home for 2 weeks. Yeah.
Oh, that's some good bonding time. You won't forget that. That'll be fun.
It was good. We had good fun though. It was busy Christmas because we did the hop to like 4 different events over 2 days, but it was good. It was good.
That's awesome. Well, glad to see your face again. Glad to be back on the horse, right? Getting back into the swing of things. Hey, everybody who's listening. Today's sponsor is Honeybadger, by the way. Glad to have them back sponsoring again. We have got a lot of news to catch up on, releases, packages, all that good stuff. I originally put every single thing in here. Dude, there's like so much. There's a ton of them. We're going to see what ones we want to skip, but we're going to start with releases. So I'm going to start with Laravel 11.35. Here we go. This week, which was the week of December 10th, the Laravel team released 11.35, which includes URI parsing, a mutation, the ability to disable HTTP client exception response truncation, transforming an HTTP response to a Fluent instance, and more. Let's talk about URI parsing and mutation. So Taylor Otwell, I think he put out a tweet like, let's see if I can write a URI parsing library while I'm on the plane. And so he tweeted out like when he was on the plane, and then like when he got there, he was like almost done. Just need to finish some tests or something like that. So he did this in like a quick trip sort of deal. So that's pretty cool. So you can say URI of, and then you pass in a string of like a URI, right? So this is sort of like string of, sort of same sort of deal. And then you can, there's these Fluent methods that you can put on there, like arrow with query, arrow with path, arrow with fragment. And so you can build up these URI paths using this new URI helper. So then off of that URI, you can get things like give me the scheme, like which HTTP or HTTPS, give me the host, give me a user, give me the password, give me the path, the port, the query, all the different parts of the query, and lots of other things. So you can also, which is cool, retrieve a URI instance. So an instance of this URI mutator from the current request. So you do $request arrow URI, and that gives you an instance of that available for you to do all that mutating or pulling off those different pieces, which is pretty cool. So yeah, there you have it. Pull request 53731 for more details. I'm sure if it's not in the documentation already, it will make its way in there as well. Customizing or disabling HTTP client exception message truncation. Steve Bauman talked about this again on Twitter as well. He contributed the ability to customize or disable altogether HTTP client response truncation. This happens inside of the application bootstrap configuration. inside of the with exceptions callback. So if you've been using Laravel 11, you'll know that a lot of the ways that you configure things now, instead of having different service providers like a HTTP kernel service provider, now all of these things are configured inside of the bootstrap/app.php. So one of the Fluent methods that you have in there is the with exceptions callback. And this is where you can customize things like where you would inject your error handling service, like Honeybadger. And this is also where you customize the truncation length of a HTTP client response. So you've probably had this before where you have a HTTP client response and then it says ... at the end. And it'll say the rest of this has been truncated. It's been chopped off. And so what you can do is you can instead say exceptions should truncate the request exception at, and then you pass a character limit. Or you can disable it altogether by saying exceptions arrow don't truncate request exceptions. So Steve talked about this a little bit and how it can be very frustrating when you're trying to debug something and you get these HTTP exceptions, but they just cut off. And so now you can disable that, or you can extend the amount of characters that you get before it cuts it off. So that's a cool one in the framework now available. Thank you, Steve Bauman. Transforming HTTP client response data into a Fluent instance. Also, as you may have guessed by Steve Bauman, what this allows you to do is it allows you to take an HTTP client response and then get pieces off of it using a Fluent interface. So HTTP is this new library that Laravel has introduced. I think it maybe even uses Guzzle behind the scenes, but this is a first-party class now in Laravel. So HTTP dodop get, passing in a URI. And then at the end of that, you would just say arrow Fluent. And what this will do is this will return a Fluent instance that you can then pull different pieces off of. So you'd say Fluent arrow float price, and that would give you the price value that came back from that as a float. You can do similar things like collect or Boolean or integer and grab different pieces off of the response that you made with that HTTP class. So pretty cool stuff there. Really nice addition. Thank you, Steve. Add the conditionable trait to request. So you may remember this. The conditionable trait is something that has been added on quite a few different places inside of the framework. And what it is it allows you to say when, and then you can pass in a Boolean, or you can pass in a closure that you can use to determine if the when statement is true or not. So just like the query builder now, you can use when inside of a request class. So you can say, and I'm guessing this would be something like a form request, possibly, something like that. You could say this when truthy, and then you could say this request should merge these values, or should, merge different values based on something that's coming into it. And so you now have the ability to do that, and you can string as many of those as you'd like to together. So this arrow when, truthy statement, if it's true, do this. If it's false, do this. And then another arrow when, truthy statement, if it's true, do this. If it's false, do this. And that makes it pretty powerful. Now, this is something you could have done before, right? But it makes it really handy to be able to just use this conditionable trait inside of those now. And that's in there by default. Okay, allow sorting routes by definition in route list. So Matthew Tudisco contributed the ability to sort the route list results by definition. I'm trying to figure out what exactly that means by definition.
The order that they're defined in the routes file.
Yeah.
Because I think by default,
I
think by default they come out alphabetically.
Okay, sure.
When you do the list,
they come out all grouped together. Yeah. And so now what they do is they come out based on how you define them and what order you defined them inside of the web.php maybe, or inside of the api.php. That's actually really, really helpful because sometimes you're at the bottom of the list and you just I want to get this one. Where is it at in my route list? And you have to kind of go hunt and peck around for it and find it. But this is really nice. Nice job, Matthew Tudisco. Thank you very much. Okay, one more here. Schedule handling. Ping on success and failure. Ooh, Michael, this sounds familiar. Then ping me. Rest in peace. Rest in peace, then ping me. Luca Castellanuvo contributed the ping of success, or ping on success if and ping on failure if to schedule handling. So what this allows the scheduler to do is to ping a URL when the task fails, or succeeds. Previously, it was just then ping, and you would pass a URL. And I think it would only ping if it was successful, but now it will also ping in the case of failure, right? So ping before, you can have ping before, you can have ping on success, and you can have ping on failure. So pretty nice, really, really nice stuff there. Okay. You can see that in the documentation, by the way, for Laravel 11.x. See pinging URLs in the documentation. That will give you more information on that one. Okay, that's 11.35. A lot of really good stuff inside there. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Dorinda, on to you.
11.36 was released the week of December 18th. First up, Stephen Bowman contributed a Fluent dot set method, which adds a chainable method that supports dot notation to set deeply nested attributes. It is somewhat of a mouthful, but what this allows you to do is if you're wanting to set array values, multiple levels deep, you can use dot notation, which is fairly commonplace inside of Laravel. So this is an implementation that uses Laravel's data set function, which is a useful helper to work with nested array data. So definitely check that out. We'll have links to that one in the show notes for you. Luke Kuzmish contributed adding the stringable interface to the URI and URI query string classes, which already implemented stringable. But this allows you to basically leverage the magic __ toString method, so that if you were to cast it to a string or return it in a string, it would return it as a string representation rather than a serialized object. So thanks to Luke for that one. And lastly, JMac, the Laravel garbage man, added the new URI class as a default global alias, which means that you can now access URI directly without having to use the Illuminate support namespace prefix. That's it for 11.36.
11.37 is the last one we have here, folks. First one is the add dumpable trait to URI. So going along with this theme of the URI class, Adrian Nuremberger added the dumpable trait to the URI class. This is familiar to you if you've used dump or DD on a string or on a collection or something like that. It's the same deal. So you say URI of whatever the string is, and then you kind of do your modifications. And then at any point inside that Fluent chain, you can just do dump or DD. And that will either just kick it out to the console, or it'll kick it out to the console and then kill it. So either way, really helpful. Just added that trait to the URI class. Ignore case was added to the option string is. So the string is will check to see if these two strings are equivalent. And so what you can do is pass now as a third argument that says whether you care about the casing of the two strings or not. Do you care that one's uppercase, one's lowercase? If you don't, you can pass false, and it will remove strict case comparison. We have a new Eloquent relation methods contributed by Andre Heldar. And what this is it's basically the opposite of where has relation or where has morph. So these are where doesn't have relation and where doesn't have morph. These are two new relation methods, which again are the opposite of the existing relation existence queries. So you could say user where doesn't have relation, and then you can say comments, and then you could pass some where clause essentially as the another argument where you could say user where doesn't have relation comments where they were created more than a day ago, or user where doesn't have relation comments that are not approved is approved as false. So pretty handy there. You also have the where morph doesn't have relation in case you're using polymorphic relationships as well. So that's pretty cool. Thank you, Andre. There is also two new assertions. Teddy Frankfurt contributed an assert failed with method to the interacts with Q trait. I'm sorry, only one new assertion, but a assert failed with method to the interacts with Q trait, which allows you to check a failure exception in a test. So if you had a process podcast job with fake Q interactions, you can then say the job assert failed with and then a string or an exception with a message, things like that. So that's pretty handy. With fake Q interactions, I actually forgot about this. Is that so? I'm trying to remember how that works. Have you ever used that, Michael? Interacts with Q?
I
haven't
not
either, but I feel like this would be really helpful with a couple things that I'm actually doing right now.
This isn't a testing scenario. So is this to do
Correct.
with like I want to specifically test this job
Like this path.
that
Yeah.
does this thing, but without using like the Q fake, bus fake stuff? Is that how it works? I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it can be hard to fake a queue interaction. Like, let's say you fail
Right.
it 3 times in a row or something like that, and it fails those 3 times, and then you test the failure path. Before, I think that was sort of challenging to do, and so this interacts with queue trait allowed you to essentially fake out the queue handler so that you could test those paths a little bit easier, those failure paths a little bit easier, I believe.
Yeah, this
But I
was
totally
around
forgot about it.
testing previously attempting to test that a queue job was released, deleted, or manually failed was cumbersome and required the definition of custom queue fakes and stubs. In Laravel 11, you may easily test for these queue interactions using the with fake queue interactions method. Fair enough.
Yeah, and
Like
so
it.
yeah, very cool. Very cool, actually. So nicely done. All right, that's 11.37. All the releases.
Excellent. On to the news. First up, VS Code has firmly established itself as the go-to editor for developers worldwide. Very popular, of course, in the JavaScript, TypeScript communities and for those developers. And while PHP Storm seems to be the preferred choice for Laravel developers, many, especially those that are transitioning from other languages, are comfortable and would prefer to do their Laravel development in VS Code. There's already some Laravel support in VS Code through various extensions, but a truly seamless and integrated experience was missing. And recognizing this need at Laracon US 2024, the Laravel team announced the ambitious task of creating an official VS Code extension for Laravel. The wait is finally over. Of course, by the time you're hearing this into the new year, this has been out since the middle of December. So nice little Christmas present from the Laravel team. The new extension is set to enhance your development workflow by providing a suite of helpful features, and it offers improved autocomplete, enhanced navigation with click-to-source functionality, and other tools to streamline your Laravel development experience. It can autocomplete app bindings, config environment variables, routes, models, views, and more. It will link directly to definitions for routes, models, and config values. It will warn if something is missing, like a config value or a blade template, and sometimes we'll be able to suggest fixes for you. And it will also provide more helpful information when you hover over code. There is a non-exhausting list of features covered in the extension so far. App bindings, assets, config, Eloquent, environment, inertia, routes, middleware, translations, validations, views. There is more on the roadmap, including integration with VS Code Test Runner, Livewire support, Vault support, Pint support, and better auto-completion, linking, hovering, and diagnostics in Blade files. The extension, as I said, released just before Christmas, is currently in an open beta testing period. To provide feedback or report issues, you can follow the support instructions. We'll have links to all of that for you in the show notes. Your input will help to shape the future of the extension and make it the best-in-class Laravel VS Code extension. So if you are a VS Code user or have been considering whether or not you might want to use it, definitely check it out and provide your feedback through the relevant channels. We'll have links to all of that for you in the show notes.
Super cool. All for free, right? That's
all
the best part.
For free. The
All
best bit.
for free. Yes. And so, I think the the Laravel team is really wanting to they didn't come to take part, they came to take over, right? They really want to make PHP the default language of choice for people who are just getting started with programming, right? And to that end, they have released this as a free package because VS Code is also free, right? Free, open source. They're like, hey, let's target that platform. It's available and accessible to the widest range of users. Let's just release this and make it so that anybody who wants to get started with Laravel can do so really easily and without any expense to themselves. Also, they released Herd, right? Which includes Herd for Windows. You don't have to buy the premium license in order to be able to just get it running. You got it on Windows. You got it on Mac. I think you have it on Linux as well. And so they're trying to just really make it, no, not yet. They're trying to make it really easy, for people to get started with Laravel. So nicely done, team. Nicely done. Hey, folks, in the case that you haven't gotten your Aaron Francis fix lately, we've got a new Laravel Creator, Laravel Creator Spotlight series. So Eric Barnes recently interviewed Aaron Francis to take a look at his journey to fame. He has a recent Laravel package they talked about called Solo, talked about his Try Hard Studios courses, and also transitioning from full-time work to running a full-time business, as well as some personal life stuff, parenting and his future plans. So if you'd like to read about that, you can check out the blog post here where we have all the show links, which is great, or you can get it in your podcatcher of choice. Laravel Creator Spotlight Series. This is episode 18. Check it out.
Ghostty is a fast, feature-rich, and cross-platform terminal. If you had been online during the break, I think this launched between Christmas and New Year's. Mitchell Hashimoto from he created.
What a cool last name, by the way. Hashimoto.
What a great name.
I love it.
Hashimoto. Created. What was the thing that we used? Vagrant from that ecosystem. So he's created this new cross-platform feature-rich terminal emulator that uses platform-native user interface elements and GPU acceleration. And it was created to feel and look like a native application for your given desktop environment, currently macOS or Linux. Ghostty is written in Swift using AppKit and SwiftUI on macOS, using a shared libghostty core package across all platforms. The main features include Windows tabs and splits to support multiple Windows tabs and splits, of course. Hundreds of built-in color themes, leveraging, I think, the iTerm format from memory. Flexible, customizable key bindings, and support for hundreds of configuration options. The main aim of this thing is for it to have sensible defaults out of the box. So whilst it is extremely configurable, the intent is that you wouldn't have to configure much. Set your font, set your color scheme, and that's about it. It has a built-in theme preview, so you can go through and list all the themes and have a look and then set the ones that you want. I've switched over to it because I love the terminal and why not? So I was previously a Kitty user, but everyone loves a native application. They always run much smoother. And I don't know, it's just nice. If you don't really have any opinions about terminal emulators one way or another, probably not for you. If you're using, it starts with W, Wave, or whichever it is that does the AI autocompletion and things like that. Like if you're using that, probably just stick with that. But
I don't remember what that one's called. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Warp is the one. Warp.dev. So if you're using Warp, then probably just stick with Warp. You'll be happy with that. But for those of you like me that have done the journey of iTerm and Kitty and Alacrity and whatever else, then definitely check out Ghostty. Pretty cool project. I will have links to all of it for you in the show notes.
Yeah, I was what's his name? I literally had it 2 seconds ago. I'm getting old, Michael. I'm getting old. The dude who was at Laracon this last year, who's the streamer guy.
The Primogen.
Thank you. Him.
I was going to say, there was 900 people at Laracon.
No, the guy.
The guy.
Yeah, he did a review on this. And so showed some of the cool stuff. Yeah, the getting themes set up, it's not like it's really hard, but it's like I always had to go back and look at how to do it. When I'm setting up my terminal, and this just makes it really, really easy, which is funny because that's like the one feature that all the developers want. Like, how do I get my theme changed? It's like, you know what? Let's just build in a theme previewer here and make it super simple. Yeah. So really nice.
The fun thing, like really, really cool. I said that I made the switch. So I only just found out about Ghostty probably a couple of days before it released. It's been in development for like 2 years. Friend of the show, Jesse Leet, has been using it for a number of months. And I was like, have you seen this? He's like, oh yeah, I've been using this for a while. So when this came out, I was out on my morning walk. And so I, on my phone, built my Ghostty config in GitHub, added it to my dot files, reading the documentation while I was going. So when I got back from my walk and sat down at my computer, I pulled down my dot files, installed Ghostty, and then I think I had a typo in one of the config values, but I was able to configure it, having not even installed the application at all.
That's hilarious.
So
it's that simple.
Just to give you some idea of where I'm at in terms of using the terminal.
Love it. Hey, I've got one more item in news before we get into packages here. So Paul Redmond did this for us. He did a Laravel News 2024 recap where he handpicked some of the biggest stories at Laravel News in 2024. This was a really big year for Laravel News. Eric Barnes went full-time with Laravel News. We have the new Creator Spotlight series, Laravel Creator Spotlight series, big announcements from Laravel like Laravel Cloud, Inertia JS 2.0, the official Laravel VS Code extension, all that sort of stuff. So for each month in 2024, there's a highlight. I'm going to run through which ones are the very top blog posts that we had for each month. January, we had Laravel Scout adding typesense. In February, Laravel Reverb was released, a new first-party WebSocket server for Laravel applications, again, all free. In March, Laravel 11 was released. We had some excellent additions to the framework, which you can read about here. In April, 8.4, PHP 8.4 property hooks passed the RFC vote, which was very, very cool. In May, Statamic 5 was released, focusing on performance improvements, developer experience, and continued modernization of the code base. In June, we had the ultimate guide to Laravel validation. This one was written up by Ashley Allen. It walks through everything you need to know to get started with and be productive with validation in your Laravel applications. In July, we had the Laravel Creator Spotlight series featuring interviews with creators making cool things in the Laravel ecosystem. In August, Laracon US 2024, all sorts of announcements in that one. September, we had Pest 3 being released. October, there was Laravel Prism, which is our good friend TJ Miller's package for AI integration. It provides seamless interfaces for AI providers like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Olama with clean expressive syntax. November, PHP 8.4 is released. And then we've got December, Laravel VS Code and Inertia JS 2.0. Oh man, it was a good year. Lots of crazy stuff. Lots of crazy
free
good stuff.
So much stuff that we get in this community
We're
for nothing.
spoiled.
And like high quality stuff, not just
absolutely
free stuff for the sake of free stuff, but high quality free stuff that really
first party packages.
Really does move the needle forward. So thanks to
it absolutely does.
all the contributors, Laravel, the company, which is grown from 10 developers to it was 10 developers, right? And now it's like 60 or 70 people across the board, different function and things like that. So shout out to them. It's incredible to think about all of the stuff that they were able to pull together last year, all the stuff that they built, and this year all the stuff that they're going to put into the hands of developers to make our lives easier. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Shall we jump into the packages?
Absolutely. Wirechat is a Laravel Livewire chat package created by Namu Makwembo. Brings real-time private and group communications to your application. Key features include real-time messaging and search. It is built with Livewire components. It is ideal for teams and communities as you can create groups, edit members, add admins, group permissions, and more. There is smart message deletion that won't interrupt the entire conversation for other users. There is sharing of media and attachments, the ability to reply to messages, there's files and attachment support in the conversation, and customizable themes, including dark mode. You can install this into your existing Laravel application, run some migrations and the installation. It's using Reverb under the hood for its real-time functionality. And you basically just need to add a trait into any models that you want to enable for chatting. So probably your user model. Once installed, you can navigate to the chats route in your application and search for and select a user to start a conversation with. Interesting new package there. Looks pretty polished as well, which is nice. So we have links to all of that in the show notes. Thanks to Namu.
Very cool. Hey, we've got another package that we've talked about on here before, which is Scramble. And what this does is it provides automated API documentation of your Laravel API resources. So API resources, which are a first-party thing inside of Laravel, are a really great way to build APIs with Laravel. They provide a transformation layer between your models and then the JSON that's returned from your API. And you can configure how your models are represented as arrays. And what we talked about this earlier was like, when this is filled, then send this out, and when it's not, then you don't have to. Those sorts of things. It has those conditional traits and those things as well. So it's really nice. And these API resources provide a ton of tools that make that transformation more granular. So what Scramble does is it understands how those API resources work inside of Laravel, and it automatically generates documentation for Laravel, right? So it looks at that, and then it creates the documentation for it, and then I believe it generates Stoplight, I think is the is the package that it uses to kind of take that OpenAPI spec and then transform it into a documentation page for you. So with its latest update, Scramble now supports all API resource payload building methods, making automatically generated documentation even more accurate. So scramble.ddoc.co. They do have a premium version as well that allows you to use spaCy data model objects, I think, in the case that you want to be able to reuse these in other places. So if you not only want to be able to use API resources, but you want to use something like spaCy data objects in your responses, you can use that as well. But this right here, this particular blog post we're talking about here, goes through the different API resources and how it generates the documentation for you. And then shows you a kind of a preview of what that documentation will look like. It's really, really nice. I would highly suggest using it if you are looking for something that's going to give you great documentation out of the box, if you're following what I would call like the default Laravel way to build APIs. So thanks, Roman Litvienko, for writing this one up. Really, really good stuff. Scramble.ddoc.co.
Very cool. The log alarm package for Laravel gives you real-time monitoring and error detection for your applications. It helps you stay on top of your logs by providing monitoring, error detection, and notifications to Slack and email. Main features include real-time log monitoring, which continuously listens for log events and keeps track of your application's health. It automatically detects and responds to error log events, sends instant notifications to Slack and email when errors occur. You can set thresholds and delays to avoid notification flooding. There is cache-based alerting as well, so it will help you to efficiently track error occurrences without the overhead of database operations, and it is easily configurable using settings to specify error conditions with custom strings. With default settings, the application will notify if it finds the same message within a configured frequency. You can also configure a string match to only trigger notifications if the log message contains the string. So you'll get Slack notifications or an email based on your notification configuration. You can learn more about this package, get installation instructions, and the source code on GitHub. Show notes is where you can find all of that information.
That is a great one, honestly. Log alarms seems like something that would be excellent if I wanted to set it up myself. However, if you'd rather not set it up yourself, then you should definitely check out Honeybadger. So Honeybadger takes all the things that this log alarm package does and makes it not your problem to solve inside of your application, right? There's so many ways for startups and for companies to fail and lose money, but downtime should not be one of them. Honeybadger has done a recent study that found that downtime can cost as much as $427 per minute for small businesses and up to $9,000 per minute for medium-sized businesses. That's every single minute. That's not like per hour, every minute. A monthly subscription with Honeybadger helps you to prevent those sort of costly downtimes by giving you all of the monitoring that you need in one easy-to-use platform so you can quickly understand what's going on and how to fix it, which helps you stay in business. And the best part is you don't have to set it up in anything that takes any amount of time. It's as little as 5 minutes. So check out honeybadger.io where you can get started for free monitoring your Laravel applications and getting all the amazing insights that they give with a great team of developers who have been doing nothing but error monitoring and tracking for the last decade. You should definitely check them out if you want to find your errors and get them surfaced to your channels where you get notified as quickly as possible and get busy fixing bugs. Thanks, Honeybadger, for sponsoring the show.
Thanks, Honeybadger. One thing that people might ask, why would I use a hosted service versus something like this this log package, the log alarm package? The problem with your application going down is that it's probably not going to do a whole lot of anything. So an external observability tool will be able to, do health checks and uptime checks and things like that. And it'll tell you, hey, you're completely down. So something to keep in mind if you're umming and ahhing. They're both free. So try Honeybadger and try Honeybadger and decide for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my friend.
You're going to
take Token Forge. You're going to take Token Forge.
Forge is API token management with Laravel Breeze. This is a package by Blaspsoft. It is a versatile Laravel package designed to add robust, customizable API token management to your application. The package is inspired by Laravel Jetstream's token implementation, but for users of Laravel Breeze. The Key features of the package include token management, allowing you to create, update, and revoke API tokens with ease. Permission control gives you granular permission definitions for your tokens. There is the ability to monitor token usage and activity for better security. It works with Laravel's authentication and session systems, and customization supports a configurable interface via a token forge controller contract, adapting to specific application needs. The package supports both Blade and Inertia view stacks provided by Laravel Breeze and requires Laravel Sanctum. Before installing the package, ensure the chosen Laravel Breeze stack is installed and properly configured along with Laravel Sanctum, and then follow through with the installation instructions. We'll have links to that in the show notes. When you're done, you just get a beautiful Create API Token page that allows you to define all your permissions and things like that for what the tokens can do in your application. We'll have links to all of that for you in the show notes.
Very nice. Hey, have you ever needed to get a server's public IP address with PHP? Well, if you have
much
public
easier these
IP,
days.
It is. It sure is. Yeah. What's my IP? Right? It's good. What's my IP? And there you have it. But public IP is a PHP library that gets a server's public IP address reliably and quickly. It has an opinionated default configuration so that you can get a fast, reliable answer without really any setup. You can configure if you'd like to with different providers, but once you install it, it's really easy to just say public IPv4 dodop get. That returns your IPv4 address. Public IPv6 dodop get returns your IPv6. And then if you just say public IP dodop get, that returns either your IPv4 or your IPv6, depending on which one is currently being used. So that's it. It provides two basic methods for getting the server's IP, which includes dig and HTTP whoami providers. If you want more granular control, you can define which fetcher to use and or which DNS provider. That's the basic gist of it. You need to get the public IP of a particular server. This is how you can do it really easily inside of your application. To be honest, as I was looking through this, I'm like, when would I need this exactly? I don't know. I suppose if you were running, yeah, it does. I mean, correct, exactly right. Depends on what you're doing. I've not needed this up to this point, but I'm sure there are people out there who are like, oh my gosh, I remember having to do that myself, and it was so annoying to have to figure that out. I had to, head out to the terminal and use, what is that one Symfony component that we can use now, essentially, that allows you to kind of get out to the shell.
Process.
Yes.
Component.
Process. Yep, exactly. That's the one. So in any case, if you've had to do this before, you know who you are. Check out public IP.
Nice. The one-time password manager package for Laravel provides a comprehensive set of methods to generate, send, verify, and manage OTPs. It also integrates with Laravel's cache system to throttle OTP sending and provides a layer of security by tracking OTP requests. Main features include the ability to generate, send, resend, verify, track, and rate limit OTP code generation. It handles OTP invalidation after multiple failed verifications, automatic deletion of OTP codes after successful verification. It allows you to customize rate limiting thresholds, max allowed attempts, and auto deletion. Supports multiple OTP types using enums, and has customizable mobile number validation. The package's README has setup and usage examples, so you can learn all about that if you've ever needed to implement one-time passwords in your application. We have links to that for you in the show notes.
Very nice. Well, hey, have you ever needed to use Quickpay, which is online payments made easy, according to them, allowing you to get started in only a few minutes and accepting all common payment methods? Well, if that is you, if you're using Quickpay, you're in luck, because Quickpay now has a package for Laravel written by Morten Back. It helps you quickly utilize the Quickpay API client using Fluent objects and a service facade. So it's exactly what it sounds like. If you're using Quickpay, you now have a Laravel package to do so. Here's some of the main features: capture a payment, refund a payment, authorize a payment, cancel a payment, create a payment with a basket of items, create a payment link and redirect the user to it, create a fraud report for a payment, or a payment link with custom continue, cancel, and callback URLs. Learn more about the package, full installation instructions, and view the source code on GitHub at mortenback/Laravel-Quickpay. There you have it.
Nice. Microsoft Teams notification package allows you to send notifications to Microsoft Teams. You can send normal messages, messages with additional details, and even use the package's custom logging channel. The logging functionality will send messages to a Teams channel using a configured logging channel. Features include the ability to send normal messages, messages with additional details, success messages, warning messages, error messages, messages with JSON blocks, custom logging, and configurable message colors. You can learn all about this one in show notes. We have links today if you've ever needed to send notifications into Microsoft Teams.
There is also a notification driver in the case that you wanted to use Laravel notifications and send notifications to Teams, right? So if you use like to Mail, to SMS, to Microsoft Teams, there's a notification driver as well that works in a similar fashion. So you could check that one out as well if you're needing to do Teams notifications. But on this same trajectory here, Laravel Microsoft Graph. This is a powerful tool that allows developers to access and utilize the data from various Microsoft services, including, but not limited to, Office 365, Windows, and security platforms. So Microsoft Graph, I think it was earlier this year, they deprecated all of their, or maybe they even eliminated all of their REST APIs that were available, and they're now forcing folks to switch over to their Graph APIs. So this was this particular package here, the Laravel Microsoft Graph package, is created by David Carr, and it provides seamless integration with the Microsoft Graph REST API. Microsoft Graph REST. I'm not sure. That sounds like a little bit of an oxymoron, but whatever. There you have it. It makes it easier for developers to interact with some of the Microsoft cloud services. So here are some of the features. It allows for easy authentication. You don't have to figure out the whole OAuth 2.0 authentication process, the back and forth. It will handle all that for you. It has an authentication middleware which restricts access to routes only to authenticated M365 users. It has contact management, so you can create, read, update, and delete a user's contacts. It has email management, so you can access your inboxes, send and manage email. And then file handling, so you can work with OneDrive files and SharePoint documents really easily. So this, the rest of this just goes through how you install and configure it. You would do as you would expect, composer require it. Then you publish some configuration files, set up the configuration file that's published at msgraph.php. So you're going to need your client ID, secret tenant ID, OAuth URL, landing URL, publish the migrations, run all that stuff, and then follow the examples for how you can authenticate a user, send an email, list a OneDrive file, etc. So there you have it. If you need to do that on behalf of a user, this is a great tool to simplify that process. We recently had to do this, actually. We hand rolled it. Thankfully, we didn't need access to all that much. We were needing access to emails and attachments specifically. And so I don't know if this would have been as helpful, because as I looked through this the other day, you can get and list out emails, but I don't think you can pull attachments off of the emails. I could be wrong, but I don't know for sure. So, any case, Yannick, thanks for writing that one up. There you have it, folks. The Laravel Microsoft Graph package.
The Laravel community offers a growing number of packages that use AI models like OpenAI's GPT and Anthropic's Claude to simplify and enhance application localization. There are a few handpicked packages that each have unique features that can make your translation and process more productive and accurate. There's some here, a couple that Paul Redman, everyone's favorite human, has mentioned here. The Filament Translations GPT is a package that is a filament extension that auto-translates your application using ChatGPT. Leveraging the Translations Manager package, you can use AI to generate translations inside of a beautiful admin panel. There's also Laravel Auto Translations, which is a package designed to streamline the localization of your Laravel application using AI. Provides commands to scan and translate. The package will streamline workflows, making application internationalization efficient and hassle-free, and it supports multiple AI drivers, including ChatGPT, Google Translate, and DeepL. And the last one here is the Laravel AI Translator package that automatically translates your language files into many languages using OpenAI's GPT models and Anthropic's Claude. On the subject of AI translation, did you see Jeffrey Way tweeted over the break this video? So it's him, physically him in this video. It has been dubbed in his voice, but he is speaking Spanish. And
No, I've not seen this.
And like gringo Spanish, where he's got like you can tell that he's got an accent. It's as though Jeffrey is speaking Spanish. It's
Like
trippy.
with the
It's
accent, yeah.
with the accent, yeah, with like his normal accent, his normal
English
voice.
accent, yeah.
But you can tell like um when you would like for Italian, I used to when I was in school and I was learning Italian, we'd have one guy who he potentially would have laid it on a bit thick, but he'd say like instead of mi chiamo, he'd say mi chiamo. Like he would really lay it on thick.
Yeah,
So this is
right.
not quite to that extent. But it's crazy how good this stuff has become in I mean, I want to say a short period of time. It's
Bizarre.
been a couple
Yeah.
of years, but it's like it's Jeffrey right there. It doesn't AI the mouth, which I appreciate. I think if it
Uh-huh.
did some kind of AI stuff to make it look like he was
I'm sure it
speaking
could.
Spanish, it, I would be even more uncomfortable with that. Don't do that. But it's this is using AI to do text to text, like you would think fairly straightforward. I think with these kind of things, they're more literal translations. Like there are things doing a literal translation that when you are speaking in a different language, you wouldn't necessarily say. Some
Sure.
words you might not translate. English to
Yeah.
Polish, for example, like we in Polish, you would flip words around. You would like you wouldn't say them in the same order that you would say them in English. But that side aside, that stuff aside, I think it's a pretty good thing to offer to like open up those learning, those videos to a broader audience in their native language. So
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. Yeah.
kudos to Jeffrey and to Laracast for that.
Very cool. Love that. Hey, we've got our last package here, folks, and this one is called Dummy. I'm actually super excited about this one. This one is created by Steve Bauman, who has just been on a tear recently, creating all sorts of cool stuff. So think about this. You've got a Laravel Eloquent model, and you want to create a fake of that, right? You want, not a fake, a factory of that. Well, that's great because Laravel ships with factories, which doesn't it seem crazy to think that at one point that was not a thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
In the
Laravel
before
factories
time?
was like there was
Yeah.
like in the before time like there was like packages for doing that stuff, but like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't exist at one point, and so now we have them, and of course we're like, oh yeah, of course we have factories, but we didn't at one point. So if you're not familiar with what this is, let me just spell it out for you real quick. Every model would have a factory. So if I have a user, I have a user factory, and there's a definition in there that allows me to use Faker, which is a PHP library that generates fake data. So I can say like name, email, sentence, title, address, and it will spit out for me a string version of one of those things. Just picking from some random list that it has, or these generators that it uses in order to generate these fake pieces of data, which is super helpful when you're wanting to seed your database with non-production data. However, as your application grows, there will be times where you're not only dealing with situations where you need to fake or get dummy data for Eloquent models, but if you're using DTOs or something like that, and you need to pass DTOs around, there's instances where you're going to need to generate dummy data inside of your DTOs. So classes that are not Eloquent models. So how do you handle that? Well, that's exactly the problem that this one is solving. That's the exact problem that this package is solving. So it can be used to generate PHP class instances populated with dummy data using Faker. So it can be really useful in generating instances of any class, not just Eloquent models, with realistic data during testing, when seeding databases, or for rapid prototyping. So you can pose a require directory tree / dummy. There are two ways that you can generate dummy data. So one is by putting a has factory trait directly on the class that you would like to generate the dummy data on. So if you have the has factory trait on there, then there's two methods you have to define: get factory definition and then to factory instance. This allows you to then use a familiar syntax. Like, so if you have a player, that's a DTO, player is the name of the class, you'd say player dodop factory arrow make. It's the same way that you would do it if you were using a Laravel Eloquent model. The other way you can do it, which I feel like creates or gives you a little more control over the dummy data generation process, is to use a separate factory class. So you could have a player factory class. And then in that case, that one feels very similar to what you would think you would have in the case of a regular Laravel model factory, right? So you just have a method called definition, a method called generate, and that is going to allow you to create this fake version of this, or to populate a class like that with fake data. And in that case, the way that you have to grab or create one of those is to actually call the class player factory new arrow make, and that would handle using your definition and your generate in order to pass those values in. So it also allows you to override attributes in your definition, similar to how you would have with a Laravel model factory. You can generate multiple instances using the count method. Again, very similar to how you would with the Laravel Eloquent models. It'll allow you to define specific methods to apply modifications, create factory callbacks. Basically, all the things that you could do with a regular Laravel Eloquent factory, you can do with this dummy package. So that's how it works. If you are needing to create dummy data, which we've done this manually without this package before, right? And you probably have too, Michael, with like, if you need some fake DTO data, it is.
Yeah.
And so this is a really great package created by a really respected community member, Steve Bauman. If you need this functionality, you should definitely check out this package, Dummy. Thanks so much, Steve, for creating that one. And thank you to Yannick for writing that one up.
Fantastic. We did it. We were nowhere near 30 minutes, but we did it.
We did it. There are also,
there are 23 tutorials over the last 2 weeks. So our wonderful, I guess, Harris and Yannick have been hard at it over the last 2 weeks while you and I have been slacking off. Cranking it out. 23 tutorials. We're not going to go through them because there's 23 of them and we're already 50 minutes in. We will include them all, links to all of them in the show notes, stuff around concurrent requests, customizing the truncation stuff we talked about, the HTTP client, discovering file downloads, deep array manipulations, all the stuff that we've talked about through this episode. There's tutorials that go along with a lot of those things to go into them in a bit more detail. So we'll link to all of that stuff in the show notes, but there's just 23 is too much for us to read through at this point. So especially after a couple of weeks off, but they'll all be there for your consumption. And we look forward to hearing which your favorites are. And shout out again to Harris and Yannick for their contributions to Laravel News.
Agreed. I would also suggest, if you're not on Telegram, or let's say if you are on Telegram, subscribing to the Laravel News Telegram channel. That's, it's a little bit much to sort of digest or try and digest 23 tutorials all at the same time. But like, if you're on the Telegram channel, you get a slow drip of these things, right? They're coming in and you kind of see them as they come in, and you can take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, read about it and like, oh, that's interesting. And then, store it away for when you need to use something like that. But a lot of the tutorials are surfacing things that are in the framework that you don't know about because it's just been a long time. It's like interacts like with the queue actions or whatever we were talking about just earlier, right? Totally forgot about that. There's definitely a tutorial out there for it on Laravel News. So they're doing a good job resurfacing some of these things that are available to us that we haven't heard about in a while, just because it's not new and shiny. It's just been there for a while. So definitely check those out. Folks, thanks so much for hanging out with us. You can find show notes for this episode at podcast.laravel-news.com/229. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you on Twitter, X, at Michael Dorita, at Jacob Bennett, or at Laravel News. And if you liked the podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you'd rate it up in your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars would be incredible and amazing. Thanks so much for hanging out with us again in the new year, 2025. Hopefully lots more wonderful episodes to come in the year ahead. Have a wonderful new year. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye, everyone.